Good evening. This is the July 10th meeting of the Laconia Conservation Commission. I'm Dean Anson.
Lisa Moore.
Marnie Schultz.
Dick Christopher.
So we have a quorum.
Dean Trefethan.
Rob Mora.
Okay, so we have the minutes from the previous meeting of June 19th.
I submitted my corrections already.
Okay, did you correct the one on the Pearly Pond where it said left and you meant right?
Yeah.
Okay, you corrected that, okay.
And I've also got a name correction as
Right.
well.
And I got a couple of others.
Under 7, Lisa Moore, there's an I.
That's it, one more eye.
See, as long as you don't put an O in there, I'm okay with it. And apparently, and I don't know if we can do anything about this, apparently I was premature in discussing this because there's not been a formal presentation to the committee on that, so I don't know if we can, I said it, so I don't know if we can alter it, but.
Item number 7?
About my statement about a committee to advance.
Oh,
And apparently I was premature because that has not been addressed to the actual committee. So I don't know if we can do anything about that, or I just found out the other day I wasn't supposed to say anything.
okay,
No,
all right.
Who's going to see these anyway?
I'm just saying.
There would
Okay.
be a correction on Deb William as Williams in that 7 also, on the 4th.
Okay, yep, I see it.
And down in 5, did you have Lisa's term on the com?
It's not one word.
And then I think, I don't know, is lake bed one word or 2 words?
I think it's 2.
And that's in 6.1.
Back on 7, I already turned it in, but I wrote that it should reference the state school buildings. There's no reference as to what buildings are being referenced there.
Okay, any other changes, corrections? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the meetings, the minutes as adjusted?
So I move to approve the June 19th, 2019 minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the Pearly Pond update. There's no new business, so we'll go to old business and Pearly Pond update. I talked to Amy Levisic today, and Dean, you want to tell us what's going on there?
Well, there is basically two things going on. The the meeting that they held with the family and a few other city officials a couple of months ago now at the pond resulted in the request to, the biggest request was to seek a dredge permit from DES to do the perimeter of the pond because of a perceived sediment from erosion. That is still being pursued, although the initial indication from DES was not favorable, as expected, I think. So that's still pending, and then they are looking for someone to do, an arborist to do some major extensive trimming of the oak in an effort to try to preserve or at least prolong the tree. And last I knew, they had not hired anyone yet.
Who's
So to-
responsible for doing the hiring?
That would be Parks and Rec.
Okay. Is there a reason that they're dragging their feet, or what?
I think it's a matter of, it's that time of the year, everybody's busy, and it's kind of unique in that area in that you kind of gotta know what you're doing
Okay.
on
Can't
old
just have an old-
trees,
a guy with a
and
saw
plus
down.
getting
Have a
in
crane
there,
in there.
access is an issue, but,
You gotta have a crane to do.
right,
that.
you gotta have, right, because getting in there is a little bit of a problem. But I think it's more of a, getting the right person who has experience with older trees.
And the equipment.
And the equipment, right. Where there's a will, there's a way on the equipment, I think, but knowledge is hard to come by sometimes.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, does the city council want us to assemble a list of potential plants that could be planted there, that might have more flowers and prettier flowers?
Just where would you plant them?
People
I-
would pick them.
I don't know.
I mean, along the road, there's all kinds of shrubbery,
Right, and
and
that's not
as you
appropriate
go
anyway.
in, there's stuff along the water's edge that's growing. So where would you put whatever you want to put?
I don't know. Floating,
There ought to be a putter place first before you decide on what you're gonna put.
If you, it's something quick, you and I have talked about that, the Versicolor iris is something you can
Mhm.
put in right away, but, I mean, it's,
But
But-
they only bloom for a short period
I
of
know,
time.
I know, well, they've got the grass, but
Right.
that might not be.
okay, all right, well, maybe that,
I'll talk with Amy about where we need to go with that.
Or
I'll do
if,
that.
right. So, when they do work on if they do the dredging component, will they take some of the trees that are in the pond out? Or are they just gonna do the perimeter?
well, there are trees that are in the pond from the perimeter, so,
Yeah, I know that there were some trees towards what I would call the rear of the pond,
Right,
i.e. the furthest part away from Main Street,
Right.
that they were going to leave.
well, there's a birch on the left that's coming down, and then there's, I don't know whether it was a pine or a spruce that's on the right that goes almost all the way across in that way back part.
Yeah, I know they talked about taking a couple out, but there was some they were going to leave. So, but I don't
Okay.
know exactly which ones are which.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have anything else on Pearly Pond? Okay. We haven't done any tributary and sampling of Paugus Bay, and we need to do that. Is there anybody who has any time to do it?
Well, who used to do it? I mean, I just remember Scott used to go out on the boat from the water department, and that Mike used to go with him, and I guess you used to go with him sometime, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's what we're trying to duplicate? That kinda-
Yes,
Okay.
mhm.
Who's got the training on it?
I've been trained to do it. I haven't done it in a while, but I could get trained by some people who, either DES or somebody from Winnisquam Watershed Network. They sample Winnisquam, so. We have all the meters. In fact, the meters are with Winnisquam Watershed Network. I'm gonna pick them up tomorrow and I'll bring them to City Hall, return them.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so,
So who used to coordinate with the water department about use of the boat?
Scott?
Okay.
Okay, so,
We have I mean, we are considering candidates for replacement of the conservation technician.
good.
We'll be starting interviews soon. Might be something we want to wait till, if we can, to wait till we hire someone and then get them trained and so that they're part of the process, I think would be good. I don't know if this is super time sensitive or not, but
Well, do you have a idea of what,
no, I
when somebody
don't.
might be on board?
No, I don't, because we haven't done any interviews yet, so I really don't know what the quality of the applicants
Candidates are,
really are.
right.
On paper, we have a few potential, but, and then after we go through that process, I don't know when the start time would be. I don't know
What their
whether they're
commitment is
doing,
now.
summer employment or whether they're just going to the beach every day, so I don't know.
Do we have an obligation to test around the same time every year? I mean, I know,
Oh, yeah, we, we used to have a pretty good regiment on when we sampled, how frequently, and,
to get different times of year for temperature and,
right,
other
and,
stuff, yeah.
and to get a certain number of samples so that we had a good feeling for what was going on with the tributaries and the deep lake. How many candidates did you get?
We had, 7 or 8 applications.
Okay. So on paper, you said there were a couple that looked good?
Yeah, there's 3 or 4. I think we've identified 4 or 5 that we probably will interview.
Okay,
That's good.
that's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
That's,
last time you had none.
It was slim pickings last time, yeah, from my understanding. It was before my time, but yeah.
so I think, part of it is it's perfect timing for people graduating from college,
Yeah.
and so. Okay, so that's good. So,
I mean, I can always, if we need to schedule something with the water department, I can schedule something with the water department to go prior, but I didn't know if it was just more efficient, if we got somebody new to get them the learning opportunity.
so it is the 10th of July. We won't have anybody before August.
Oh, no. Mid-August would be the earliest, I would think.
Okay,
And that might be optimistic, but at the earliest.
okay. So I think what we ought to do is go ahead and, doing the sampling is not rocket science. So, I'll give Rob a call tomorrow and we'll figure out some times that are good for me and good for you, and
Okay.
we can try to work out with the water department. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if there's an update on the state school property. I know that on next Tuesday, there is a meeting at the Laconia Middle School at 7 o'clock. It's a public hearing.
They will give a presentation on where they're at first, including, I think, the readout of the concept of a sports recreational facility, and then they'll open it up to public comments.
Okay. And they're not talking about doing anything with a Hearn.
Correct?
Good.
Okay.
That's good.
And they're not talking about doing anything with the community gardens.
Correct.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, those parcels are not included in, I mean, they view them as amenities that people could avail themselves of, but absolutely, they're off the table from any development consideration.
Good, good. Wes?
That's at 7 o'clock, you said?
It's at 7 o'clock at the
Middle
Laconia
school.
Middle School
Tuesday night.
next Tuesday. And I suspect, if I had to guess, it'd probably be a pretty good showing.
Hope they advertise it.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's been, they're trying.
Is it on the, can we put it on the city website?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Okay,
I'll double check.
okay. So anybody who can be there.
I mean, the only other part of the update is, well, two things. They're still a long way away from making any decisions. They are, I don't want to put a timetable on it, but it's months, if not years, before they're making a decision. So, I mean, it's a long time. The other thing is, they had asked for a substantial increase in their budget for, from the state for the next 2 fiscal years, and they did not get, they did get some additional money from over what they had, but not what they were asking for, so. And of course, the state budget's in limbo right now anyway, so I don't know what will happen, but. So that will delay them even,
Yeah.
probably even longer, because they just won't be able to go as fast as they maybe were hoping to go on certain studies and things of that nature.
You know what I can't figure? Years ago, they used to hay that property. And now, they got a guy out there today on a mower. By the time he finishes one end, he has to go back and do the other end. You know, and the state's paying for all of this. They could let the grass grow and have a farmer come in and pay for the hay probably.
I
They
think
can do
they
it when they do across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
when
think
we
they
get our farmers.
pay, I think it costs $300,000 a year to maintain the property. And I don't know whether that's just for mowing.
Snow
No,
removal,
that's
No,
water, sewer, buildings, and that's
snow and all that.
the 911 center and everything else.
you know,
Yeah, goats.
years ago, after they removed the prisoners, I was party to seeing what's going on over there at the time. They bought the most beautiful plywood that you ever want to see. You know, good 5/8, real expensive plywood. And they bought it up, they painted it, and they boarded up all those windows with it, but expensive stuff that they used.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. What happens when the state gets its fingers in stuff?
Somebody knew where to get it. A friend.
Is Lakes Region Planning Commission applying for any grants to the EPA to do some additional sampling?
Yes, that is part of the plan, yeah.
Do you know how much they're asking for?
I don't remember, but they are definitely in the mix.
They're asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
And I spoke to Jeff Hayes and a man from, what's the name of the engineering company that's doing the environmental?
Novus?
Novus. I talked to their project manager, and they said so far, there's no environmental contamination,
Right.
whatever that means. That's pretty anecdotal.
In the ground.
In the ground.
Buildings?
Buildings, different story.
Right.
Wow, that's good.
So the good news is.
Yeah, that is
yeah,
good, actually, yeah.
Right. But I think that the other issue is, don't they have a wastewater treatment plant there, or,
Not active.
No, not active, but,
Previously, you mean?
I'm sorry?
Previously?
Yes.
Oh,
They used to have a problem with the sewage going down to the beach down in there.
Right. That's why I'm asking if,
I don't recall hearing anything about that. I know that they talked about the sewer line that was installed at some point in time after the basin project was finished, but at some point in time, it goes through Ahern and down to the collector that runs along the shore of Winnisquam. That was the main sewer line for all of the state buildings,
okay,
but they're not sure what size it is, so it may need to be replaced. Or we put in another line that goes,
Well, they did a lot of work out there early this spring.
that was water,
Oh, okay.
that was water.
did they put in a well, is that what they did?
No, they hooked into
No,
the
they
existing.
rehooked up to the city.
Yeah.
City, yeah.
We did put wells in up for the fields, for the,
Baseball fields?
yeah, the baseball fields, because the water line got broke and it wasn't going up. And the, the tanks that are at the top there weren't getting fed, so they did put in a couple of wells to
Oh, that's
service the
right. Yeah,
fields.
they did those
that,
last year or the
last
year
year,
before.
yeah, last spring. But the state put in a new water line up from
Right.
Parade Road,
It was a mess.
yeah.
Okay,
But they're mowing it now, so.
If they were ever to develop some kind of a big complex up there, they definitely would have to upgrade that sewer line
Yeah.
that goes down to the pumping station or whatever it is there. Wouldn't be adequate for that, talking about hotels and things.
Yeah, any significant amount of development will require,
What's the impact upon the city's sewage system and water system if they do develop as they're talking about potentially? I mean, that could be considerable. Water supply, sewage, the whole works.
the study that they did earlier indicates that the capacity for the sewer is there, and the capacity for water is there, but there will be a pressure problem, water pressure problem, once you get about halfway up the slope, so that they were gonna have to put in some type of a pump system to create higher pressure. So the area that they've identified as probable either residential or the healthcare facility, whatever form that takes, would require some enhancement in the water pressure somehow. Either they gotta put in a water tank, or they gotta put in pumps, or they gotta do something. The pressure drops real quick. Because they're already, when you get to that intersection of Parade and Elm, you're already at a pretty good elevation, and then you pretty quickly go up there again, so the pressure drops real quick, so.
okay. So there's, I don't know if Wes was here, next Tuesday, there's a meeting at Laconia Middle School. Talk about the state school property. It starts at 7 o'clock. It's a public hearing.
Great.
Okay. I have not done anything about the Pickerel Pond property. I know I keep talking about it, but that's all I'm doing is talking. So maybe Wes and I could take a hike out there.
Sure.
Okay, maybe we could do it later this week or early next week. I don't know
Let's
what
do
you're.
early next week. I won't be able to do later this week.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. We'll coordinate it. Okay. Has anybody else been out there? Okay. All right. There are no DES permits. their applications. So I think the last thing on the agenda is, did you want to talk about this, Lisa? I'm confused. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I do. Well,
Okay.
just mention it. So you're talking about the agriculture
Yeah,
under liaisons
right.
subcommittees. So the Lakes Region Food Network had a meeting on Monday. And Chris, Dick, I didn't know if you, I was gonna call you Chris, I'm sorry. Dick, I didn't know if you still have an interest in attending those meetings or not.
Yeah, it seems to me that every time they call a meeting, I got another meeting
Okay.
or something going on, and
So one of the things we talked about was the fact that there are no active farmers markets in Laconia anymore. And we have, the group has an interest in maybe doing a survey. I think they talked about maybe putting it as a question in the Laconia Daily Sun. Do you miss the farmers markets? Would you like a farmers? We have, that hasn't been, but anyway, so I think that's something that several members of the group are interested in kind of pursuing, is kind of an outreach type thing. And I wondered if the Laconia Conservation Commission, maybe Dean working with Rick DeMark or something, if the commission would want to take a position, either, I assume it would be in support of this kind of outreach and promotion, or be, maybe even at times be part of it, depending on what it is. Being that it's the Ag Committee, I thought it was appropriate to ask you guys to be a part of that network on this subject. So I didn't know if that was something you had any ideas to discuss. So we don't have it, there are a couple of definitive action plans on it that Rick DeMark is gonna talk to the newspaper about putting it as a question of the week. And I think there are some people who are, as individuals, might be interested in writing a letter to the editor about, either their positive feelings about having a farmer's market, or, I mean, it's all, we haven't seen a draft of what they were going to write, but that kind of thing. And I just didn't know if at some point coming back to the Conservation Commission, if we had a discussion tonight about what our position might be about it, or if we didn't want to get involved with it. Whether at some point the Conservation Commission would want to put a letter to the editor in the paper about it, as, or, concerning our rural character maybe, or I don't know, whatever position, whatever angle you want to take on it, but as we move forward, I mean, I think the last market, the Saturday market discontinued because the person who had been organizing it didn't want to take on that responsibility anymore, so I think that was part of it, so.
Wasn't there one on Thursdays?
There was, and I
2
think that,
years ago, or 2 summers
and I
ago?
think that started dwindling, and I think it was the same thing, that was Main Street, I know the Bullawells, and then the Main Street group was the primary
Right.
mover and shaker on that. And so I think,
Just in regards to taking the parking lot? Or they no longer wanted to be,
I don't really know what, I just know
Okay.
that that's who was kind of organizing it, and I was not, it's not something I stayed on top of, and so I don't want to
Right.
give out misinformation.
right?
But that's all I can tell you, is there was somebody organizing it, and
well, what I did notice, on the very last one there, Master Gardeners, we set up there.
Yep.
And from previous years to that, to the years we were there, the attendance was right down to nothing, really. Sarawak moved off to Concord Farmers Markets,
Yeah.
for one thing.
Yep.
And they were a big dealer, corn and the whole
Sure.
works. Thought, when the corn come in, things would change, but it didn't.
yeah.
And, we had a few others, but, not a whole lot of farmers there.
I think this may be part of what we're hoping to get at with that question in the newspaper and all that. I mean, I think we're trying to see what the temperature is out there for a farmer's market, and if this is something where we get positive feedback, or, if the commission wants to have any input on any of this, or, like I said, it's just a
The,
discussion point.
Survey also ought to include the farmers and anybody else, people who sell jewelry and all that stuff, who wants to participate, and what day of the week is best. We've done it on Thursdays there. you know, you gotta find out if there's anybody who wants to do it first,
Well, I think that the first step,
would be to find out
That-
who wants it.
well, the question of the week in the paper, see what kind of
Yeah.
feedback we get back from the public.
Right.
If the public is like dead silence on it and we get no feedback, well, maybe they don't really, aren't all that enthused about whether there's a farmer's market or not. But if we get some positive feedback, oh yeah, I miss it, or oh, it was a good event and I wish, you know, or whatever, maybe just, you know,
It used to be quite good years ago.
Yep.
And, it just went downhill.
so I guess I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I
No,
won't
that's okay.
Say any more? I don't know
No,
if you-
no, I think the question that, you know, has been asked, I think they're good questions, like, how many farmers are we gonna get?
Well, I think,
And,
yeah.
so I think it's a combination of how many people, how many citizens miss it, and how many farmers will participate.
Right, because not all farmers find it cost-effective to pay people, because they have a hard enough time getting staff as it is. But, I mean, there are other formats for farmers markets too, if you will, like the Plymouth Market's an online market. And Local Foods Plymouth is an online market. And
You order,
you order ahead and then they have a pickup site and all that. But anyway, I don't want to get it, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
maybe something like that might come out of it, who knows? But, okay, so is the sense that the Conservation Commission is not opposed to becoming involved if there's something that seems like it might be
I think we should support
appropriate?
it. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's part of what we do, you know, and let them come up with the questionnaire and all that, and, you know, I think we ought to support it, definitely.
no, I agree, I mean, what do you think, Wes?
No, I'm all set. No, I think it's a great idea, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll let Rick,
Marnie, what do you think?
Well, I think conservation and gardening go together,
Yeah, oh yeah, I
So-
agree.
Local markets, yeah, yeah.
so.
yeah, so I'll just let Rick know that if there's something that comes up that sounds like, we want to gather partnership support or whatever, that the Conservation Commission wants to be contacted, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody agree that we should be supportive?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think it's, I mean, I would like to see local farmers succeed. That's what I would like to see. And, okay, all right, thank you. Okay, milfoil management. The city's committed $30,000 to milfoil management?
I believe the number for next year is 40,
Next year being,
well, current year, the just approved budget. And we had about 7,900 left over from last year, which we just got a bill this week for the people that are doing the chemical treatment. They did one section already. So that took care of the 7,900 and a few $100s of the current year. So,
okay, so that's in Paugus Bay.
yes, that was, yes. And then there's further treatments later on for Winnisquam and.
Right, and the
Yeah.
Winnisquam is all Dash. They're
Okay.
In the Laconia waters.
And I know there's some fundraising going on around the Paugus Bay area,
Right,
which is having a little bit of success, but somehow or another, we need to come up with a lot more money, because the resources of the state are dwindling. They seem to appropriate the same amount of money every budget, every 2 years, but the number of ponds and lakes that they're treating are expanding, so we're getting less and less every year. We get a smaller piece of the pie, basically, but,
Right.
so, the city either needs to pony up more money, or the legislature needs to, increase the amount of money, or combinations of both, or the people around the bay that really are affected by milfoil need to help out with the donations a little bit more than what has been occurring. there's a lot of ideas on increasing boat registrations or having like a checkbox for an optional donation when people register their boat if they want to, you know, that all requires legislative
Approval.
approval,
Yeah.
so.
So has there been any discussion we have five representatives, don't we? Delegate rep,
I've talked with Rich Tilton about that and told him that he needs to reach out to the legislators. So he was going to do that.
I wonder if New Hampshire Lakes is a good way to do it.
And that would be good too, because I mean, it's particularly from the state funding standpoint, you know, I mean, obviously, we're concerned about our 3 lakes, but, I mean, it's in most lakes, unfortunately, so, and many ponds. So, we're not, you know, it's not just our legislators that have got to be concerned about it, it's got to be pretty much statewide, so, that would be a good way, I think, of trying to get some, awareness of the issue.
All right, I'll call Tom O'Brien and talk to him.
When they do the chemical thing, the water, is there any follow-up at some future date to see how effective it was?
Yes.
There is?
The, Amy Schmagula is the lady, Amy Schmagula from
okay.
DES is the lady who's in
Yeah,
charge
I
of
got that, yeah.
invasive species.
I just didn't understand what you said.
Oh, sorry. Kind of rolls off your
Yeah,
tongue.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
know, it was my dentist.
Well,
fix
put them back in then.
Maybe I should take them out.
oh, Marty.
She does a survey in the spring and in the fall. So she will do a survey to see how effective whatever the treatment was, whether it was the diver assisted
right, okay.
or if it was applying herbicides. And I think one of the issues one of the issues is the herbicides are only applied by one company.
Yeah, doesn't sound so good, does it?
No. The divers, there are several companies that compete. So.
Is this
they're
one
using-
company statewide that does this, the herbicide?
I think that's right. And they change from what the chemical they were applying last year to a different chemical which is more effective. It supposedly does not stay in the water column as long, goes more down to the bottom. So once they switched from the old chemical to this new chemical, the price went up.
Of course.
So I guess one of the questions I have is, could the city have their own divers?
Subcontract with a,
Or
Can we hire our own divers, or?
hire our own diving company? So there's AB Aquatics and then there's Aqualogic are the two
Right.
companies around here. And if we, if what we did is hired a company, the city hired, not the state, but the city hired, could we get a better price? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But under city rules and regulations and everything else, can we do that?
Oh, yeah, we could go out to bid
And then the other question is,
and then divert
But-
some of the money that we would normally send a DES to that. So, yeah, we could do that. Yep.
but I don't know how Amy would react to that in terms of, I don't know if divers have to get a permit?
Yeah, they would,
certification.
some type of certification
But yeah.
from the state to do that kind of work. I don't know if it's a permit or a certification, but, yeah.
And if they're gonna be handling chemicals, they definitely are gonna have to get
Yeah.
some
No,
kind
but
of.
not use any chemicals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just you
Not
have
in
the
the divers,
Are
yeah.
you talking about a city group of divers, city-owned group of
No,
divers?
no. The city hires a.
Well, okay,
a
so we got two
contractor.
companies that they could hire from.
Yeah, there are two companies now.
Okay.
And if we hired, and one of the companies several years ago came to us and said, hey, if, at the end of the season, we should have our teams together. And it's still, the water's still warm enough to dive and hand harvest. And we want to keep them together, and we could give you a reduced price if you'll go beyond the current contract. So it's,
That's something we can look into.
Now, the current contract's with the state, not the city, though. So if we had a city contract,
we may be able to start earlier and work later. I don't know. It's if,
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if the schedule that we're adhering to now is just a matter of convenience or the fact that they're, obviously working other bodies of water, or whether it's some type of a time frame that DES has determined this is the time frame that we're gonna do it. So I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
isn't there also a time frame regarding the milfoil itself, when you should be pulling it? I don't know, it seems to me I read that somewhere, but,
I think too early in the season is not good, because it's not growing,
yeah,
but later in the season
yeah.
might,
Yeah, I don't know.
I have some friends that are actually the divers, so I could ask them to find out. So, okay. Anybody have anything else on milfoil? I think the city should have a contest.
I knew this was coming.
of what we could do with milfoil, like eat it.
Yeah, probably.
I said I was on board. I'll be the judge of the taste
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
Whoever can bake the best milfoil dish.
Let's
Yeah.
get
I'll put my life on the line.
Kevin Halligan involved in.
Imagine if we could do that. Imagine if we had a recipe,
Create a market.
that's it.
Or it converts nicely to some sort of petroleum product, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
It composts nicely. It smells bad, but it composts nicely.
So does Calmino, but it composts nicely.
And apparently, somebody was mixing milfoil with something else, and cows were eating it.
yeah.
Yum, yum.
They're the goats.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it, the goats.
Right.
We need aquatic goats.
Well,
Long snorkels on them.
Little
Drop the
lead
lake.
waders on their hooves.
Okay, does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, so I will be student teaching at the high school next year. And there's an environmental science class in the fall. Now, I believe this spring they did something with Jewett Brook monitoring. Yes, okay. So I guess
You're at the middle school, you said?
No, high school,
high school.
High school.
You're
Yeah.
teaching
Ivy.
environmental science?
Yeah, I'll be co-teaching it. Yeah.
with Ivy, right?
With Ivy, yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd put it out there to everybody on the commission, are there any projects that you think the high school students could get involved with?
So I've been,
I mean, in a way, it's free labor,
right,
as long as you tell them what to do,
so Ivy,
tell me to tell them what to do.
a couple of things. The Conservation District, not this group, the Conservation District still has a pot of money that I had originally gotten to buy Ivy equipment and all that for her AP class.
Mhm.
We still have some of that money. I'd love to get it committed, so I'd love to sit down with you sometime soon, and let's map out a budget, and then I can say, this is how we're gonna spend the money on that. What I did with Ivy's class as part of their year-end, I don't know if it was community service or whatever it was, but, so we focused on Tardif Park, and I also have some drain stencils and things like that. So that's part of the thing we could do. I think the city also has, I have drains, dump no waste drains to brook or stream, and I think the city has one drains to lake.
Probably, yes.
So that's something I know Deb has been involved in stenciling, so that's something, you're talking about this committee, this commission, that's something that we could be involved in, is helping the students with stenciling, drain stenciling, and we were doing some invasive species removal in Tardif Park. So that's something I was involved in with my job, but I could also do it with this. This is,
Okay.
so, and I worked with Tim Ford when we did the invasive species removal, just letting him know, and he approved what we were doing. We also installed a rain garden at Tardif Park, and I don't know if there are other locations that may be installing a rain garden. The school might be interested, associated with Jewett Brook. That might be working with private landowners. I don't know. I'm just throwing some stuff out
Right,
for the
yeah.
commission.
What
Sounds like
was
there's
the-
a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah.
What was the name of the program at Lakes Congress?
Soak up the rain.
No,
No.
no, no. it was
Smart Lake, Lake Smart.
Lake Smart.
Yep.
I think if we get the materials for Lake Smart, that would be important for the kids to know.
I'm not sure I know what Lake Smart is.
We'll hook, it's similar to Soak Up the Rain, and they know, I'm just saying, it's a kind of similar, so it's a outreach to landowners and education component of things that individuals could do to help keep runoff.
So that could be a
Contained.
great project to do at the high school. Because
Exactly.
the transportation is always an issue.
Yep, yep,
Right,
right.
right. What I was thinking too, you could engage with landowners though about things, because
Right.
there's also, I don't know if, I'm sure Ivy has it, but I could send it to you. The 2009, 2012, there's a Jewett Brook Watershed Management Plan where they outlined actions. There's also an H&H report. I mean, there's several reports I can forward to you that I think Luke Powell had provided me with when he was with the Department of Public Works, that you might get some ideas from on that. Or even just having the kids read the reports and break them down or something. I mean, there's lots of stuff.
Right.
So,
I mean, I think if the concept of a watershed could be understood, it's like, how many people live in a watershed? Not me, I'm not, but once, students understand that they live in a watershed, and the only way to preserve that watershed is for everybody who lives in the watershed to take care of runoff and.
the other thing I would like to see, Wes, and I think the Conservation Commission, I'm just speaking as one member, but asking you, years ago, a guy, there was, I think his name was Walter Bliss, was a teacher that had
Yes.
compiled for like 20 years his own data, but Ivy said, I think that might have gotten tossed when we had the addition. I
I don't think
it's,
so.
Ivy said she couldn't find it.
Oh, wow, that's different.
So I'm not sure, I have not asked Ivy if if she has since been, what she's been doing with the information she's been gathering. I would love the commission maybe to host the students to come and do a presentation, and then it would be on TV. To have the students come and talk about the chronology of that data and what their findings might have been, and that's just one thing.
Do you know if the high school has ArcGIS?
I doubt it. I don't know for certain, but I don't think so.
Because if we're going to have the students sampling Jewett Brook, then, let's not go back to the old, get out your paper and your pencil and let's write down what we find. Instead, let's do it smart with meters and a
Well, that's-
GIS machine.
That's what that $8,500 was, and I bought Evan a GIS, a handheld GIS, but that's part of what I bought Ivy were kick nets and some sampling equipment, and I also written into that proposal was to get some handheld GIS and videography, I can't talk, I'm too old. To video it, but now, of course, technology has gotten even better in the last few years since I'd written that grant, but we still have the money. So I'm just saying that that's an option too, is, you know, so we have the money to buy the technology that you could be tracking it that way.
And the kids would
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the,
You'd be a lot better at it than I would,
And-
so.
And now that I mentioned, if I could just digress just for a second, that handheld GIS, I guess it's still in your office.
Yes.
I had put in the stipulation as that it had to be able to be lent out to the students if they needed to use it or whatever. So I don't know if that's what you're still wanting to do with it. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's only $100 hand model or something
we're
like that.
not using
but-
it, that's fine. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that's another, it's a piece of equipment that's been purchased that the students could be familiarizing themselves and.
but these are kids that are taking environmental science class, and they're probably taking it because they're interested in it, or their friends are interested and they want to be with their friend, whatever. But if we could show them that, you know, the way we used to do this is we would get a piece of paper, put a mark on it, and this is what, and we'd write down in a logbook, this is what, you know, this is what we got. Versus today, what we do is we go out with meters and we take a reading, and the GIS in the meter says, you sampled right here on this day at this time, and here are the data. I think if we could get that kind of machine, and the, I'll give you the name of the lady who put together the ecology, the watershed ecology class that was offered by Fish and Game for teachers. It's really good. If you, and you can ask her where she's gonna have the next one, and it's essentially free. And it's, but she would be a good person to talk to see what meters, and then how much do those meters cost, so that, you know, you're doing state-of-the-art instead of this monkeying around with a piece of paper and a pencil and writing things down and, oh, did I write down the right thing? Did you say green or blue? You know, it's, so, I think it's a great idea. I think
What's
it's a
the
great idea.
grade level of the kids you're gonna be teaching?
Well, I'll just be with the high school in the fall, so that's basically 10 through 12.
I mean, you teaching one class on this or multiple classes?
Well, I'm paired with Ivy as a teacher, so that's anatomy and physiology, biotech, and then environmental science.
Okay.
But there are 2 environmental science classes, but I only have one of them.
You know if they're freshmen, juniors, seniors, or? the
So
three
grades 10 through 12, so sophomores to seniors.
So 16 to 18.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I think that would be great. I think it would be really great. And I talked to Walter Bliss before he left, and he said he was leaving all the data, and it's all handwritten notes, data collected by kids.
And, well, and when I spoke to Ivy, she said, when they put on the new wing or whatever, I may have gotten tossed, or I don't know where it is. But that was a one-time question, maybe it turned up since then.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll ask about it,
Okay.
definitely.
and the man's name is Walter Bliss.
Yep.
Okay, great, that's great, thanks. Okay, anybody have anything else?
Well, I do actually have one quick question for Rob. We had talked about at the last, I don't know if I was here at the last meeting, but the last meeting I was here. We talked about that book that's down in the planning office for
Yeah,
contractors.
you said you were gonna send me a link so I would know what you're talking about, so I could print you out that, and I never got
Oh.
anything from you,
Well,
so.
that makes sense then. All right, yeah,
But if you send me what you want, I can definitely print it out for you.
okay. I forgot. Thank you.
Okay, so the question that came up before the meeting started was, is there a need to have another meeting on the 24th of July, assuming we don't have any permit applications? And depending on what the applications are, I could review them and sign off on them. But this time of year, we don't have that many applications. Does anybody have any?
So we wouldn't meet until the 7th, is what you're saying?
So, but then the first meeting would be in August.
7th.
August 7th?
Yep.
Yes.
I can't do August 7th.
Well, maybe we have to meet the 24th, Dean.
No, maybe we can meet a different day instead of August 7th. Oops, that's June. It's June. It's August.
Do you want me to check the calendar for August, for the conference room? And we can schedule something that might fit?
Right, I can't do the 7th, I can do the 6th or the 8th. That's a Tuesday or a Thursday, but, you know, we're not gonna shut down if I'm not here, so. Anybody? No, I can't do the 6th. I can't do the 6th, I'm sorry. I could do the 8th.
I can't do the 8th, but I'm
I
not
can't do
essential.
the 8th.
Can't do the 8th?
Well-
So what about the following week? How about instead of the 7th, the 14th of August?
How about Christmas Day?
I can check the date, I can check what's open on the calendar, and I'll send out what's available, and maybe I just get what date works best.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
So we're gonna tentatively look at the 14th?
Yeah. Is that all right? Can everybody make the 14th?
And then, well, here's a question, do we do, because then we end up potentially only having one meeting in August again, because is anybody gonna come back the next week for the 21st? So no, so then it's 2 weeks to that meeting, and then we have the Labor Day.
Well, you know, the
I'm
summer,
just
the
saying.
summer's really busy anyway, so it's, you know, if we don't have to have 2 meetings a month, we don't have 2 meetings a month. It's not, this is not a cast in concrete. We'll dock your pay, but you don't come to all meetings.
I don't, just- I'm having an internal conflict here about the importance of meeting regularly. You know, if we're not meeting, then things that could potentially come up before us that would be of interest to us or maybe important for us to be involved don't come up because, oh, they're not meeting. I understand nobody wants to just show up if there's nothing happening.
Right, but if,
I understand, that's what I'm saying, I'm having an internal conflict about it. I mean, I think, you know, part of growing the respectability or continue to maintaining your respectability and influence is to show up, you know, but I also understand if there's nothing to talk about, what the heck? So that's why I said, I don't know, I mean, I think that's something that maybe at some meeting, we have a discussion about what's gonna be our committee culture? Or what message are we sending? Or what's our, what message are we sending to the public about who we are? What do we want the public to understand about us?
well, I think that's a good point. The Lakes Region Planning Commission Executive Committee does not meet in July or August.
But that's not really a public, I mean, I appreciate that, but, you know, and there are some conservation districts that don't meet all summer. I mean, I understand that concept, but I think we are a different animal. We are a public body, and I think if we don't even come together just to have a discussion of things that would just come up as being important to us because we've had a discussion, or if you guys have something that comes before you and you think, oh, we'll bring that up at the next Conservation Commission meeting. Oh, wait a minute, they're not meeting for another 4 weeks or 3 weeks, and so it doesn't get discussed. and that's why I said, I mean, I'm not trying to be a pill, but I get frustrated because.
So we could meet on the 24th and then again on the 14th.
Whatever you guys want to do, and I think we've maybe already made the decision for this summer, but at some point, I don't want it to get away from us. I don't want to become, my own personal feeling is I don't want this to become a body that people don't look to for input or don't feel are as engaged as we could be if we maybe met regularly or whatever. Maybe I'm not trying to say it that way, but, because I think we do a lot of good work, and I think we do meet fairly often, and I'm just saying, I just don't want it to be, oh, we're just changing meeting dates.
Yeah, I agree with her, the concept, you know, who knows what's gonna come up? Something important might come up, might not. But I think we should stick with regular meetings whenever possible.
Anybody else have any comments?
I think as long as we meet once a month, absolutely, we've covered ourselves. And this second meeting, oftentimes, things do, because we can't handle everything in one meeting, but other things do come up. But I think as long as we meet at least once a month, we're fulfilling our requirements as far as the commission is concerned. Half the people I know that know I'm on the Conservation Commission didn't even know that Laconia had one. So,
But do we want to change that? I mean, I think that's part of the question, is do we want people to be more aware that there is a Conservation Commission?
I think that's entirely up to the individual. I don't think that what we do is going to make a whole lot of difference, unless it personally affects them.
Right. One thing that you did bring to mind, Marnie, when you were just talking is, actually, our second meeting is supposed to be a work session anyway, right?
That's
It's
true.
not
That's
supposed to
the
be
way it's
officially a
written
meeting.
in the book.
That kind of just hit me, that, oh, yeah, that's right. I'd
So,
forgotten that.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think that, you know, if we stick to definitely whatever the first Wednesday of the month, or what becomes more, we are fulfilling our obligation.
Yeah.
I think the thing is consistency. I mean, unless there's a big, holiday or something that prevents us from meeting, I think it should be whatever Wednesday of the month we decide we want that meeting to be. And then if there happen to be 2 meetings in that month, that's great. But just looking at it from, maybe a community member's point of view, if we switch around all the time, if they want to come, they might not have any idea that the meeting changed.
But how often do we have people?
But I don't know if that's the point,
No, it is.
It's like the availability and the, just,
The only people I've ever seen here is the ones that got something to come before us.
Yeah.
Well-
I've never seen the general public.
No.
And so I think the following question is there a desire to elevate our public, not persona, what's the word? Image, thank you, or a public presence, maybe is there a, I mean, we used to do, like, when they had market days, we used to have a booth out there, and we used to hand out stuff, and one time we toyed with letting people know that we would come talk to them about rain gardens and all this other thing, because some of us had gone to design classes, and so we had talked about the potential of being a conduit for information, knowing that this is an advisory commission, that, we're not rules people, but, and I don't know if that's the direction we really want to go in either. But, we don't talk about the water testing we do or anything like that with the
That's how
public.
Scott roped me into this, over at, it was over
It was,
Blueberry Lane,
right,
the police,
right.
night out.
Yeah,
He had a setup there,
Yeah.
and I got talking with him, and, well, here I am.
I think in a lot of respects, we're a little redundant to some of the other organizations. And I'm not saying we don't do good work, but there are other resources for people to go to that are a little more publicly known than the Laconia Conservation Commission.
And that also has some authority.
That's the thing, we got 0.
well,
That's not really true. We do. We don't have, we can't say we're gonna deny a permit. But what we can do is we can say that we do not approve this
Right,
permit.
We've done that, right.
And it goes to the planning board, and the planning board then makes a decision. And sometimes the planning board will ask us to attend, to voice our opinion. So it's not like we're ignored. It's that the way that we're set up, and in fact, the chairman of the planning board, and I talked about how it might be a good idea for us to
Attend their meeting.
make our, to give us some more teeth. And how could we do that?
And that
I
is-
don't know how we can do that. I think, under RSA, we have certain responsibilities, and then, can we go beyond those?
We can work with Barbara Richter at the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions for other models and things like that to see, she can help us define what teeth, quote unquote, a conservation commission might exercise. But I think, Wes, to your point, that's one place where we're not redundant. No other entity is built into the city mechanism as an advisory committee to the planning board. They may take information from other places, but we are the committee that is supposed to be advising them.
Is there an environmental club at the high school?
Not to my knowledge.
There used to be one. And didn't they come to,
Was it the Key Club you're thinking of?
well, there was a Key Club too, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
The Key Club wanted to assist with some environmental projects. So, let me get to my point.
Sorry.
Instead of dancing around this whole thing. We in the past have asked people from the high school students, to become essentially junior members of this commission. And they can do that. And, the only thing they can't do is they can't vote. They can give us comments, suggestions, ideas, and I think that would be great to have some sort of a segue from environmental science class to, using environmental science. That's what we do here. We try to use environmental science. We have other areas of expertise. Okay, so let's do
Yeah,
that.
and I think that's a great idea, and I'm more than happy to try to facilitate that in the fall and get people interested. But
All right, so let's do this. Let's meet on the 24th, and that'll be a working meeting to try to figure out ways that we can become more visible to the rest of the public. Ideas on,
let's decide if we want to be more visible in the first place, right?
okay, so
Decide
what,
who we wanna be.
what's the
Yeah.
positive and what's the negative of being more visible? I mean, we took a stance on one of our trees a few years ago, and we had people come from the public
And they were very
and
creative.
letters to the editor, and there were,
Well, I think too, let's take that time in between. I'll contact Barbara Richter and just say, can you give us some examples of some very active conservation commissions? Also, can you give some examples of some conservation commissions that have gone beyond the basic,
RSA.
the RSA, basic statute? And if that's agreeable to everybody.
Yeah, I think it's good to
Doesn't
have
hurt.
somebody else. I think the other thing that would be worthwhile is to invite adjacent conservation commissions, so we have meetings with people from the Conservation Commission from Meredith and from Guilford and from Belmont, and, what are common issues that we're working on? What are some of the issues that cross the border? Because.
Well, how about milfoil? I
Well-
mean, look at the towns that are around the lake that have milfoil problems.
Yeah, all of them.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, that's a good place to start if you want to get interaction on a issue.
Well, and we did too, one of the things that we had tried to reach out to them, I think, was about how can I put this? On our shared boundaries, do our land use zones match up, and are there areas that cross municipal boundaries that are of interest to conserve? And, things like that we were just sort of, maybe the Lakes Region Planning Commission's taking on some of that role when they talk about zoning, and do you have a hard industrial zone right up against the recreation zone, and is that a conflict? That kind of stuff, maybe they're taking that up, but I mean, that was one of the things we talked about.
Wasn't the Society for the Protection of,
Well, no, Dave, was it Sunderland? He had done the mapping. They were part of that in the are you talking about the meetings we had in the past?
yeah, the one that we had up there?
Yeah, so I think I still
Lake
have
School.
some of those maps. So we had done this a little bit before, but so we were trying to, that was a mapping project that they had a grant to do. And I may still have some of that mapping, but we had a couple of meetings where we did meet with the other conservation commissions, but then, in my opinion, when the Society for Protection New Hampshire Forests kind of stomped all over it in terms of taking over, because when we started talking about conserved lands, they wanted to be the ones to conserve the land, and everybody just kind of scattered. And they're a great organization, and a lot of them are friends, but I just meant it was kind of like, all of a sudden, the meeting became, we're gonna, we want to be the
Somebody
ones,
else's
we
meeting.
want to be the ones conserving this land, I think, and it kind of took another tone, and people were like, well, we were just here to discuss stuff. So,
Okay, so for the next meeting, I'll get the information about the equipment that Fish and Game had. If you could find out about
Yep.
the farmers markets, and
I was gonna talk to Barbara. I think the farmers markets, I'll bring you information as it comes and keep you apprised, but I'll find out from Barbara Richter about.
okay, and then next week is state school.
Yes. So thank you, everybody, for letting me keep you here talking about that.
Okay, so the next meeting will be the 24th of July. And then the meeting in August will be August 7th. And whoever can make it, can make it. Okay? Okay,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? Okay.
okay. Anybody have any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you.